Welcome to 10-Minute IELTS. Today, we'll be learning about writing task 2, specifically how to elaborate in your bodies. Now, I've given you a sample question here that says some students believe that studying regularly is the best way to retain information. Others say they are able to remember everything better when they study the day before the test. Discuss both views and give your opinion. Now remember, when you are handling discuss both views topics, it is important to identify what the views are. And the first view talks about studying regularly. So a way we could phrase that is studying regularly is the best way to retain information. We just want to simplify, get rid of any unnecessary words so that we isolate what the main first topic is about. The second one seems to talk about cramming. Studying everything the day before the test is essentially cramming. So we could say, however, others believe cramming works better. Now, after you've identified the two views, the main challenge is to elaborate these in the body. And remember that the body is just going to explain the two views by maybe answering why, who, what, when, where, and how. Now, there's no requirement to answer all of these questions throughout the body. In fact, there is no such thing as a mandatory way to elaborate. It's really up to you. In this technique, we're just going to answer the one husband named How and 5 wives so that we have something to talk about. Let's start with why. Why is studying regularly the best way to retain information? Well, we could say this is because lessons are broken down into smaller, digestible portions for the brain. Let's give an example by answering the question who now. For example, I had a classmate named Joseph. Now we can answer what, maybe what class we were in. We both had an upcoming final exam in stress, or let's say electronics 1 at the end of the term. Now we can answer when. Let's answer when this happened. This was way back in 2008 when I was still a college student. Then we can answer the question where. We both studied engineering in De La Salle University. And how did Joseph study? So that we can emphasize how he studies regularly. He studied every day for 5 to 10 minutes and ended up doing well in our term exam. You can also add to that. Take note, you don't need to answer a question just once. If you have several people, go ahead and mention all of them. But the point really is just to elaborate enough so that you have more or less 100 words in the body. So let's add a bit here. He even got the highest score in our batch because of it. Now we have a complete body. Let's read that out loud. Studying regularly is the best way to retain information. This is because lessons are broken down into smaller, digestible portions for the brain. For example, I had a classmate named Joseph. We both had an upcoming final exam in Electronics 1 at the end of the term. This is way back in 2008 when I was still a college student. We both studied engineering in De La Salle University. He studied every day for 5 to 10 minutes and ended up doing well in our term exam. He even got the highest score in our batch because of it. And that's simple. That's all we did. We didn't do anything overcomplicated or difficult. It's just about answering the one husband with 5 wives: how, why, who, what, when, and where. Let's see if we can apply this strategy to the next body also. But this time, instead of using the one husband and 5 W's, we can use another strategy that's pretty simple, and that is just to add names, dates, places, and numbers. Because that's all we're essentially doing when we answer the one husband and 5 wives. Of course, we should definitely start by explaining why this view may be reasonable. However, others believe cramming works better. Why is that? Let's see. This might be because it can be easier to recall events that just recently took place. Now let's give an example with a couple of names. For example, me and my friends Greg, George, and Gina would cram all the time on the night before exams. Now let's give a specific date for when me and my friends would cram. The most memorable group study we did was back in January 2009. Now take note how specific I'm being. The more specific you are with the dates and names, the longer your elaboration will become. So it's important to really give specific details and avoid being too generic. Let's be specific about the place also. Where did we study? We spent the whole night studying in Starbucks, Vito Cruz, Taft Avenue, Metro Manila, Philippines. Now, some of you might think this is much too specific already. But remember, there is no specific criteria as to how we should elaborate the body. In fact, this may even be plus points if you are able to provide specific, concrete evidence that will support your argument. What will get a penalty, however, are very generic elaborations that don't clearly support or have a strong argument in place. That's why it's important to really talk about personal experiences that are at least specific, if not relevant. The last part are numbers. Remember, we don't have to do all of these things. It's just that the more details we provide, the higher, or rather the more content we'll have in our bodies. So we could say the next day, we were able to get more than 65 points out of 100, which was the minimum required score to pass. Now let's read everything out loud. However, others believe cramming works better. This is because it can be easier to recall events that just recently took place. For example, me and my friends Greg, George, and Gina would cram all the time on the night before exams. The most memorable group study we did was back in January 2009. We spent the whole night studying in Starbucks, Vito Cruz, Taft Avenue, Metro Manila, Philippines. The next day, we were able to get more than 65 points out of 100, which was the minimum required score to pass. And there you have it. Without doing anything needlessly complicated, we were able to elaborate 2 different views. The most important thing to remember is we need to reach 250 words in 40 minutes at the most. I hope with this technique or strategy, you'll be able to elaborate your essays within record time. If you're still having trouble, remember that I provide online coaching And you can get this by clicking on the description in the link below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for updates on new videos. And you can also email us at 10minuteielts@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your time and good luck with your study.